This is from Page with Njideka Maduka, bringing clarity to the headlines, one page at a time.
That's right, from Page with me, Njideka Maduka. Is a beautiful Thursday morning. I imagine it's more beautiful for those in Rivers State, given the news that came from there yesterday. We're still going to talk about it. But before then, how are you? Hope you're great. Well, at our end here, it's not bad. We're pushing it. You know how we say it in our local parlance. You know, we have this way of expression that can be quite funny. We're pushing it. Anyway, welcome to the front page. The name is Njideka Maduka. As usual, bringing to you a review of the major stories on our national dailies. It's a Thursday, September 18, and our papers are here with us. The Vanguard, the Guardian, and of course the Punch newspapers.
This is from Page with Njideka Maduka, bringing clarity to the headlines, one page at a time.
Kicking off with the Vanguard. Big bold headline as expected from all quarters. Excitement as Tinubu restores Fubara. Deputy legislators. Excitement as Tinubu restores Fubara. Deputy legislators. I mean, this is the biggest story on the front pages of many national dailies. If your paper did not use this story as its front page story on Thursday, then you are wrong. It was an anticipated moment. The return of Fubara, the president making a pronouncement to that effect was therefore a big deal. I'm sure a number of papers read it themselves with the best way to caption what was about to happen. But let's take a look at the lead. The Vanguard starts with a part of the president's statement yesterday. I mean, look at that. It says, quote, "It therefore gives me great pleasure to declare that the emergency in Rivers State of Nigeria shall end with effect for midnight today. The Governor, His Excellency Siminalayi Fubara, the Deputy Governor, Her Excellency Ngozi Maudu, and members of the Rivers State House of Assembly and the Speaker, Martins Amewele, will resume work in their offices from 18th September 2025. It goes on to say, with this 61-word statement, President Bola Tinubu yesterday terminated emergency rule and restored democratic governance in Rivers State 6 months after his March 18 suspension of democratic structures. Indeed, it was one unexpected emergency rule. I mean, everybody had watched what was going on in Rivers State. Governor Fubara's fallout with his godfather and predecessor, Wike. His altercations with the State Assembly. But nobody really thought those fights were enough to declare a state of emergency. But it did happen. It took a number of persons by surprise when on March 18, President Tinubu declared a state of emergency. Section 305 of the Constitution gives condition upon which a state of emergency may be declared. Subsection 3 of that section says the President shall have power to issue a proclamation of a state of emergency only when A. the Federation is at war, B. the Federation is in imminent danger of invasion or involvement in a state of war, C. there is actual breakdown of public order and public safety in the Federation or any part thereof to such extent as to require extraordinary measures to restore peace and security, D. there is a clear and present danger of an actual breakdown of public order and public safety in the Federation or any part thereof requiring extraordinary measures to avert such danger. E. there is an occurrence or imminent danger or the occurrence of any disaster or natural calamity affecting the community or a section of the community in the Federation, if there is any other public danger which clearly constitutes a threat to the existence of the Federation, or G, the President receives a request to do so in accordance with the provisions of subsection 4 of this section. And so many stakeholders have looked at these conditions and can't seem to find anyone close to what happened in Rivers State or what was happening in Rivers State to warrant the President's declaration of state of emergency. But President Tinubu defended his decision at the time and still defended it yesterday under what he called absence of governance. The fact that the political crisis between Fubara and the State Assembly had left the state in limbo. In addition to the fact that militants were bombing oil facilities. But one would ask, did any of these meet any of the criteria that should warrant a state of emergency? Even the bombings by militants did not reach the level they were during President Muhammadu Buhari. You remember under Buhari, you had the Niger Delta Avengers aggressively bombing pipelines and other oil facilities. It was really a spectacle at the time because hardly a day passed without a report of bombings in the Niger Delta. Worse was that militants at the time would announce it themselves. I mean, they would bomb and make the announcement. They would go to social media and put the announcement. Twitter, when it was called Twitter, they were tweeting, right? And you had Nigerians who were divided across board, whether they were right or whether they were wrong. You had people who were supporting them and those who were against them. But throughout that period, President Buhari never pronounced emergency rule. I've talked about the main reasons the president declared a state of emergency. One is that the executive and the legislature in the state could no longer work together, and governance was suffering. Two was the bombing of oil facilities. Now, when it comes to the relationship between Fubara and the State Assembly, it remains debatable whether governance was that affected, if I'm to go by what the president hinted at, because he talked about how the budget suffered because of this breakdown in relationship. But I also recall that Fubara at some point called the bluff of the faction of lawmakers led by Martin Amoiwele. In fact, he presented the budget to other four lawmakers, and there was no report he was being hindered or had qualms with implementing it. Number two, imagine that the president took exception to the bombings because of the effect it will definitely have on our oil revenue. I mean, oil is a major source of our revenue. With a 2 million barrels per day projection in the 2025 budget, you can imagine what we stood to lose. But the thing is, the bombing wasn't that frequent to warrant a state of emergency. And if the declaration of emergency was partly because of the destruction, I'm forced to ask, do we now value oil more than human lives? Because you have parts of the country where terrorists are causing havoc to communities, yet no emergency rule has been declared. In those places, terrorists are collecting taxes, killing families, preventing farmers from going into farms. And so, do we value oil more than human lives? A fruitful thought for us. I also think the emergency rule could have been met with less criticisms if the governor had not been suspended. I mean, I think this was the major grounds of people. The last time such a thing happened was under Obasanjo. And that was in the case of Ekiti State and, of course, Plateau State. One could attribute it to his military background. Even Jonathan declared a state of emergency, but he didn't suspend the governor at the time. And so you would expect, President Tinubu to continue in that trajectory, but that didn't happen. And so one should be concerned about how we interpret our laws. Are we interpreting them accurately, like intellectuals, or are we deploying sentiment? The president yesterday disclosed that about 40 cases are in court trying to challenge the emergency rule. Can these cases be pursued to a logical conclusion so we know who got it right or who got it wrong? I hope we get to that point. But away from that, the headline says excitement as Tinubu restores Fubara, deputy legislators. Of course, there has to be excitement. Imagine not having your governor on seat for such a period. Like we said, last time it happened was under Obasanjo. But time will tell whether this excitement by the people in Rivers State will be short-lived or not. Already some people have said Fubara is no longer his own man, that he has been defeated by Wike and his allies. But with the governor right to prove his naysayers wrong? Wike is like that stubborn boy that refuses to go away. How will Fubara handle him in the event he starts his usual trouble? He has his eyes on Rivers State, even though he is the FCT minister in Abuja. How will the governor function, or how will he function as the governor under PDP, when most structures are APC structures controlled by Wike? Or will he defect to the APC? Because I just can't imagine how it will play out in 2027. If he remains in PDP, who will work for his re-election? Because those that could have done that are of the APC controlled by Wike. You talk about the local government chairman, even his commissioners. Is he retaining the ones he appointed after some others resigned? Or will there be new demands for him to consider those affiliated to Wike? It's really a sad thing happening in Rivers. I would have said the people will determine if the governor succeeds or not. But I'm forced to ask, where were the people when the opposition party cleared 20 out of the 23 seats in the last local government elections? Where were they when Wike secured victory for President Tinubu in Rivers State during the 2023 presidential elections? Well, I'm hoping that they can pull up a surprise, as Governor Fubara resumes duty at the government house, keeping our fingers crossed and keenly watching what is going on in that state. But away from there, we go to the Guardian. Some economic matters is always bickering here and there. That man, Dangote Bika, over diversion allegation, 1.5 trillion naira subsidy demand. That man, Dangote Bika, over diversion allegations, 1.5 trillion naira subsidy demand. You have some riders there. Group challenges Dangote on sulfur waiver. Insists refinery supplies only 35% of national demand. Ndume warns against demonizing refinery. Well, Depot and Petroleum Products Marketers Association of Nigeria, DAPMAN, have rejected allegations by Dangote Petroleum Refinery and petrochemicals that its members are diverting fuel to neighboring countries. It issued a 7-day ultimatum for the claim to be withdrawn or proven with evidence. However, Dangote Refinery yesterday reiterated its stance, saying any party who feels aggrieved by the contents of this publication and position is entitled to seek redress through the appropriate legal channels. The refinery also disclosed that the Depot and Petroleum Products Marketers Association of Nigeria demanded a yearly subsidy of 1.50 trillion naira to enable members to match the refinery's gantry prices at their own depots. I thought we are done with anything subsidy. Even Dangote himself is surprised. Subsidy, hidden subsidy, whatever the case. But it's a case of one day, one trouble. I don't know if Dangote will ever drink water and drop cup, since this refinery started working. First of all, the depot owners are angry because the company alleged that they were diverting fuel to neighboring countries. And they're saying, we're giving you 7 days to retract that statement. But Dangote is saying, If you don't like what you're saying, go to court. Pretty much like INEC. Go to court. We did take up that challenge. That's left to be seen. But I would like them to take up that challenge. Because the time they suspended subsidy or they stopped subsidy, one of the gains was, the diversion of fuel to neighboring countries had reduced and all of those things. So it's quite surprising that we're still hearing things about diversion, which is really, really alarming. But second of all, Dangote is saying that the depot owners are demanding over 1.5 trillion naira in subsidy for them to distribute his product. What that actually means is that the depot owners want to transport the product through the coastal route, that is using the ship, okay? Why? Because if they go to the Dangote refinery directly to take this fuel, it's possibly going to cost them more. Because from what I learned, what a single ship can carry, that's what about 250 trucks will be carrying. So it's more efficient for them to use ship. And so it will cost them. And when there are many trucks on the road, it causes traffic gridlock and even accident. But even the one they are demanding, which is shipping, will still be costly. But the thing is, they want Dangote to bear the cost so that the price at which Nigerians buy from retailers will still be the same even when the product is shipped, or will be the same price as when they buy it directly from the refinery. But Dangote haven't done the calculation. He's saying, hell no. If we do that, it's going to cost us over 1.5 trillion naira because we'll be bearing charges that come with transporting these products through the coastal route, including port charges, NEMASA charges, and all of those kind of charges. He did a calculation for fuel, did a calculation for diesel based on our daily consumption as a nation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've not seen where a customer is demanding the owner of a product to bear the cost of transporting the goods he wants to buy. I've not seen, because this is what appears to be happening. If I want to buy something from a shop, do I tell the owner to bear the cost of bringing it to me, or me taking it from him? If I told that's what needs to happen, wouldn't there be agreement to that? Will I be the one dictating that the seller of the good bear the cost? Even if I decide my preferred mode of transporting the goods, will I be telling the producer to bear certain costs so that his products will not be expensive to the final consumers? How does that concern the producer or manufacturer or the supplier? Because it's a free market economy. If you're so concerned about the ripple effect of the costs on the customer, you have to devise means to make it cheap to your customers and not force the hand of the manufacturer. Because from what is going on, if Dangote doesn't yield to their request, it means that fuel will be much costly depending on your location. But I don't see that as a problem, because these are things that have always happened. We have always known that transportation costs have a way of inflating price. If that man cannot find ways to make it cheaper, then I don't know how that is a business of Dangote. Because Dangote had already said that from the way he's selling his product, he has reduced the cost. He has even reduced queues at the filling station, given how we had been queuing for fuels at filling stations in the time past. And I'm still wondering why depot owners are still in the question of things. Because Dangote already said that he's supplying directly to the retailers using his CNG trucks. So why are we still talking about depot owners? Or is it that all the CNG trucks have not arrived, or they are working based on old agreements? Can't he use the CNG trucks to supply to the depot owners? Because he's not expected that retailers will bear the cost. That was the essence of him deploying CNG trucks. So what's really going on? I'm happy that these people don't end up sabotaging the economy. You remember the tanker drivers started their own first, saying Dangote employing other drivers to drive his CNG trucks will render them jobless. Before you knew what was happening, they changed it to Dangote is telling the drivers he's employing not to join any union, as if that's their main grounds. They think that we are not following the story. Anyway, like I said, those people should not jeopardize this man's business. I even trust him to meet them fire for fire. He already had his Emiloko moment. Remember Emiloko? He had his Emiloko moment with them, where he had to cry like President Tinubu. Remember when he accused crude oil producers of not selling to him, or even when the regulatory body alleged that his product did not meet quality. We know how he reacted to these things. So I trust he will put in place anybody that needs to be put in place, and the Nigerian person does not suffer the consequences of these bickerings. But away from that is the final headline on the front page coming from the Punch. Cash transfer, FG pays 330 billion to 8.1 million households. Cash transfer, FG pays 330 billion naira to 8.1 million households. Basically, the federal government is reminding us that they are still in the business of disbursing funds to the poorest of the poor. But what was reviewed here mostly is the fact that this initiative or social investment program had a hiccup at a point in time, because there was a problem with getting people to get their NIN, that's the national identification number, to get their BVN as well. But everything has been rectified now, and they are ready to go. But given account as to what has been distributed so far since the president or the government came on board, they are saying that 330 billion naira has been disbursed to 8.1 million households. Meanwhile, there are about 19.7 million households, so we still have a long way to go in terms of meeting the needs of the poorest of the poor. But it's a run for us as far as the front page today is concerned. Hoping you have a fantastic day. Go out there and be the best version of yourself. Let us know what you think. Which of the headlines actually tickles your fancy? Drop your comments. Let's interact. You can also connect via my social media platforms. Go to linktree.ee/Njideka Maduka. Click on any of the tabs and you will be taken to any of my social media platforms. Join the conversation and let's make sense of the headlines one page at a time. My name is Njideka Maduka. I will see you next time. And who knows what news we'll be discussing. We're always here doing justice to them. Have a great and fantastic Thursday.